know I have a divan. Don't you know I have a divan? Don't you know I have a divan? I have a divan. I have a divan.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the Awakened Winners podcast. I am super excited to introduce my guest, Dr. Jay Barnett. He is a family therapist and he's going to share his story with us. So I hope you're looking forward to it because I am. Welcome and thank you for being here, Dr. Jay Barnett.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. And it's great to share. And I know we've been trying to get this done, and so I'm happy that I had the space in my schedule. I love to do podcasts at least like once a month, as I enjoy sharing insight and being able to share my story in various platforms. And the reason I accepted yours is because your advocacy. I have a nephew, I mean, not nephew, but niece who's on the spectrum end. And so just watching the way that you are advocating for your son, but also expanding our minds on how we connect to not just our children, but just to people altogether. I think we miss that component. And the reason that is important is because when you're looking at mental health as what I do as a family therapist, it's including all moving factors and parts in a family dynamic. And I think that's so important because our mental health is determined by our environments, and our environments determine our quality of life.
Hmm.
And for myself, it's been what I have been pushing the past 3 years about not only just checking in with yourself, but also understanding what you're feeling, understanding what your body is doing, understanding when you don't have the language and when you don't have the words. And as I've shared across the country, my story of surviving two suicide attempts and now being on the other side 10 years later with a movement of helping men heal with a mission to help people experience a better version of themselves than they have been living with when they have experienced trauma or any event that has taken away the true essence of who they are. And so I think it's something that needs to continuously be talked about. I think we are at least 2 to 3 generations behind from these conversations when it comes to Black and brown people. And I just think there's no better time than now because we are experiencing a level of exhaustion like we've never seen as a people. We have more resources, we have more stuff, more opportunities, but also it has come with a very hefty price.
Mm. Oh my gosh. I want to say that I love watching your stories. I love what you're doing in the world. It's so empowering. It's so needed. And thank you also for seeing what I do and I'm doing in the world too. Um, I wanted to hear more about what it was for you, what it was like for you to be a football player and to seemingly have it all, right? You're a good-looking man, you're a football player, but you were struggling with mental health. What was that like? And are you aware of the reasons that was occurring?
Oh, oh yeah, absolutely. I think when we hear someone is struggling with mental health, we begin to either associate that with a term where individual may be crazy, or especially if you grew up in the South like I did, or they would say things like he or she is throwed off, you know. And for me, a lot of my challenges mentally was just abandonment from my father. So football was where I found safety. And when I could no longer play, I no longer felt safe.
Mm,
And typically, what we do as men is what we do become how we identify ourselves and how we see ourselves. And part of it is from society socializing us in the capacity that we can only be one thing. It doesn't give us a wide range like they do females that you can be everything. right? And so when we look at the educational system, which is another conversation that I love to unpack, with how boys are socialized and how girls are embraced, you look at the different ways that we are not given the same grace and compassion to even expand or explore our emotions or explore what that feels like. So we only know anger. When you have a very wide range of understanding of disappointment, um, this discontent, you know what it feels like to be embarrassed. You know what it feels like to kind of have these different ranges to where I'm not feeling pleasant. This isn't comfortable. Men don't have that, and typically men don't have it because they didn't learn it as boys.
Mm-hmm.
So for myself, I only knew anger. And the anger worked for me as a football player because it's a very violent sport. And when I could no longer play, I had nowhere to exercise the anger that I was concealing. So now that anger becomes a reflection of the things that I didn't deal with as a child, because when my parents were when they went through a divorce, and I mean, I'm 13, like there's no pamphlets, there's no information board on how does Black kids deal with depression, how does a brown child deals with abuse. There's none of that. Mental health is a whitewashed Eurocentric field. So we're now trying to catch up for generations to try to restore, heal, and help people recover lives from intergenerational trauma, which is the trauma that your grandparents, your parents experienced that is now living through you genetically. So you're thinking about all those different things. So my dad battled depression, but he's a pastor, so he doesn't have time to process whatever that was for him. So the next thing for me was like, okay, I can't play football, then I'm not worth anything. And whenever a man can't identify where his self-worth is, suicide ideation is inevitable. He is going to think that he doesn't belong. For that reason, that suicide is increasingly amongst Black boys and men. And I grew up in the South where we heard that's a white thing. And I would challenge people that in this era, it has become a human issue.
Yeah.
Because we're telling men to go and become without the tools. We're telling men to be great husbands and they don't have the tools. We're telling boys to be successful. They don't have the tools. We're telling them to open up and they don't know. So I had no tools. I had no resources. I had no understanding of my emotions beyond getting mad and running over a dude on the football field. You can't do that off the field.
Right.
So I was left with self-harm. And I think that's where a lot of men are today. And to think that you have to recover and become better is even more of a daunting task, because you're now trying to comprehend how far you have to go to change things that are so far deeply rooted within you. And that can be exhausting, which is why I don't push therapy to men. I become therapy to men.
I love it.
So that they may see themselves through my story. And that's what I love to do for people, because what gives my work such relevancy and the integrity of my story and my work is from the life that I've led behind the scenes and what I have gone through and what I have suffered to overcome to move from surviving to thriving. Because you cannot get on the platform and talk to people if you have not lived it.
Right. Yes.
And that's the issue that we have right now, is we have a lot of unhealed people that are talking healing, but they're broken still. Nothing wrong with that. But again, if you're bleeding on people, you're doing more damage than you are good.
Yes.
And for me, I just spent the past 10 years healing, therapy, deconstructing, reflecting, unpacking. I mean, it's work. So people see 41-year-old Jay and don't have a understanding of what 31-year-old Jay had to go through when I lived through the suicide attempt, and now having to repair not only my body, but my mind, my spirit. This is why I tell individuals that healing is truly a journey.
Yes.
Like, you have to be in it for the journey. If you're thinking about the destination, you're going to quit.
Yes. Yes. And I want to mention, so I've been on a healing journey for over a decade too. I've done a lot of consciousness work, a lot of seeing my wounds that occurred because of my family dynamics. I don't know if you know that I wrote a book too, but I like to share it on the podcast, but it is called The Awakened Winners. It's my son. It's my son.
Love it. Love the cover.
And the subtitle is We Already Won. And the reason why I love that title is because for me, it says so much. The Awakened Winners, we already won. One of the things I'm aware of is that some people that are close to me, they've played sports. And for some reason, every time that they played before, I would always want to say, you're amazing, even if you didn't win. You're amazing, even if you didn't win. Because I felt there was a conditioning happening without awareness that they'd get celebrated only if they achieved. So then when they don't have the sport anymore, if they graduate or, whatever, they're not doing it anymore, what happens to the celebration? What happens to their own worth? So I just wanted to mention that. And this is one of the reasons why I really wanted you to be on this podcast, because I know that it's going to impact people that are near and dear to me. And so I love that you're sharing your story. Also, as far as feelings go, because you said something about men not only feeling anger. I know for me, I was conditioned barely to feel. Like it was like if you laughed, it was an issue. If you cried, it was an issue. So it was like,
yeah.
Well, feelings are bad, but then we're human. Right now, I understand we're human and we feel. That's a strength. We actually get to feel. Obviously, when you're aware with consciousness, you're not letting your feelings control you, right? You're not being run by your feelings. So it's not,
Absolutely.
I'm angry and I'm going here and I'm going to just bang on everything. It's
right.
I'm angry and I'm going to take this approach and I'm going to go breathe and I'm going to go run or I'm going to go box, whatever it is, but a healthy way. So I just wanted to reflect those couple of things as I was.
No, and I think that's important because we have to do a better job of humanizing ourselves. And we have not done that as people, and particularly in the Black and brown population, because much of our lives has been predicated upon surviving. And to actually thrive, you have to feel. To thrive, you have to have a sense of awareness to determine, what do I do with this decision? Is this a heart decision or is this a head decision?
Yeah.
And when you understand that I am now the master of my emotions, one of my favorite poems is Invictus, toward the end, it matters not how straight the gate or how charged the punishment which rolls. I am the master of my fate and I am the captain of my soul.
Yeah.
And so to truly understand that, like, you have to master and you have to understand that you're the captain. And I think where we are now is giving people license to say, no, I don't feel well. And I'm not going to lie and say I do just to go in and work and then feel worse after I get home.
Right.
And that's just an example, because we have suppressed what we felt. It's like, I see it a lot when I'm counseling couples. It's like they've been married 10 years and I've been holding on to this for 7 years. And I'm just like, or I've been wanting to say this to my mom, or I've been wanting to say this to my dad, and not realizing the longer we suppress, it does harm to our organs, like literally.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I study case analysis with my doctor. Like, we study hospitals, we study healthcare, we study all types of things. And a lot of the case studies that I did, even in my master studies would study different diseases that are associated with mental health. And a lot of it all was connected to trauma or events that were replayed over and over and over and over and over. Study shows that men who have coronary heart disease are usually suffering from suppressed emotions.
Right.
So that blockage, again, is causing a blockage in other areas. So emotions are made to flow through you. They're not made to be monuments where you begin to build these shrines.
Yeah.
They're made to be this flow that comes through and says, I feel this, okay? And it's just a sensor. And it's a message, it's an alert that says, okay, I feel unease right now. I'm feeling unease because I don't know anybody here and I'm uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean that I can't socialize. But when you don't have people to clearly articulate, that's why for the work I do, what I've embraced is my authenticity, that I can drop all, my vocabulary is extensive, but it means nothing if it goes over people's head and they don't understand what they need.
Right.
And I'm about getting people what they need so people can say, you know what? I can become better. Most people don't want to become better because they feel that they don't have what it takes. And so if you're talking over my head and you're using a bunch of terminology and you're using a bunch of methodology and things, I'm just kind of like, yeah, that sounds good but I don't understand what that means. But what I love to do is make mental health conversations so operational and so simple. And as my mentor said, if you can't explain it like to a fifth grader, you haven't learned it well enough. Everybody's trying to be scholars and experts. Man, be relatable.
Yes.
You know, so that's my passion. Why I speak the way I do and I construct the conversation, because I want somebody to feel, oh, okay, that's what that is.
Right.
And not somebody hearing a bunch of terms where, oh, what is a cognitive distortion? You know what I mean? So it's like, if you're not in the field, you know what I mean? So I think it's important for people to understand that you are human, number one. You are a living being, means that you are a human being and not a human doing. And then 3, you have the right to reauthorize a new life for yourself. That's where the thriving comes in. It's taking ownership, not of what somebody did, but taking ownership of what you can do moving forward. Because I can't change what my father did to my mom, to me, to my family, but I had the right to change how I would move within myself, so my life could impact others. And I never forget this. My mentor said to me one time, change the story. He said, dude, you don't have to keep telling this story. And so many people don't want to change the story because the story gets some attention. And then the story also justifies their actions and behavior. So I can keep being this toxic, dysfunctional, dismissive, disregarding, deflective, no accountability. Because the moment that I have to take ownership for it, I'm now responsible. But as long as I can say, this happening to me, and this is why I talk to you crazy, this is why I don't treat my kids, I don't tell my kids I love them because nobody never told me. It's all of these different things that we bring into our life and we don't have to.
Right.
And that's why I said, and I have to talk biblical because I'm a believer, because I love to connect faith and psychology. One of my favorite passages is when Jesus asked the man, will thou be made whole? And what I heard is, do you want to be better? And he had to choose healing. So we have to choose to heal. healing doesn't happen because, oh, I want to heal. Like, and as you know, you've been on your journey 10 years. It's a it's a daily decision.
Yes. You know
To
what I
find-
I like to share this. So I'm very spiritual. I believe in a higher power. I believe in God. And through meditation, I had a conversation with God. And God literally said to me, I live in your heart. And
Yep.
that absolutely shifted so much for me. But I also started reflecting on, if we are conditioned to believe that God is separate from us, we reach out for God outside, and then God becomes a lot of things,
Yep.
right? It becomes,
Absolutely.
God becomes, the winning, money,
Hmm.
relationship, love, etc., right? And when we come home to ourselves and remember that we are actually whole already, because if I'm one with God, I'm already whole, then I can move forward with ease. I'm not anxiety driven, trying to figure out how to make the puzzle fit.
Right. Exactly. Well, because, and then too, and I love that you brought that up. Listen what you said though. You heard that where?
Within myself.
Where?
What do you mean?
You heard it where? You were doing what?
Oh, meditating, stillness.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So guess what? And for the people that will hear this, you have to sit still to
Yeah.
hear
Yes.
and to listen.
Yes.
You hear through the functionality of your ears. You listen by your will.
Yes.
And you can only listen when you will yourself to be centered. And whatever that is.
Yes.
Some people gonna sit in the, they're gonna sit Indian style. I like to sit in my chair in the bedroom in the morning with the candle lit, and I sit there. Whatever that is for you, you have to center yourself.
Yes.
Because if you don't center yourself, you're gonna find yourself confused in a very noisy world and society.
Absolutely. That I remember speaking to somebody that speaks about meditation a lot. And he says, typically when I tell people to go meditate, I just tell them to go sit. Because when I tell them to go meditate, there's a preconceived notion of what that's supposed to look like, right? So people end
Oh
up in
yeah.
their head, I need to sit a certain way. I'm not meditating, I'm thinking, whatever. And after I talked to him, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go sit. So I sat at the edge of my bed and closed my eyes, and I heard a message come through. Be still and know that I am God. God is the stillness, and God could only be experienced in the stillness of our minds.
Yep. One
Okay.
of one of the greatest quotes from Mother Teresa.
Mm-hmm.
God is a friend to silence,
Mm,
solitude, and stillness.
I love it.
Love Mother Teresa. Yeah. She said God is a friend to stillness, solitude, and silence.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So good. I'm being mindful of the time because I know you have a hard stop. Um, I write notes so I can remember what I want to say.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things I heard is that you, in your own way, are bringing men into an initiation, or that's what's at least desired, right? I think at some point there was initiations for women and men, right? But that doesn't happen as much or anymore. And so creating opportunities for men, for boys to initiate into manhood, right? Like to know, okay, this is normal. It's normal that you're going through that. So that's one thing I heard. I love also, I'm going to throw things out there, and of course you can share whatever comes up, but one of the quotes I wrote is, be as loving as the God you believe in. I heard you say that you're being the support for this man.
Yeah,
You're being, right? You're not
yeah,
trying to convince anybody. You're not saying you need this, right? Because that just pushes people away. Nobody wants to be perceived as broken. People are already attacking themselves. So you're just being your truth. And then they get to gravitate toward you. They get to be like, this guy is for real. This guy's pretty
Right.
awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Too.
Because it's men are visuals. Like we have to see it. I mean, I remember seeing my therapist, when I started, and I remember beginning to surround myself with men who had a different conversation and who also had a different story. Sometimes we begin to bond with other individuals' trauma. That's a whole nother discussion. And because trauma bonding is not always just in a romantic relationship. Sometimes it's in platonic friendships where we are bonding with people who share the same stories. And one of the things that I realized is that the only way that my life is going to change, I had to change the environment of the stories that I was listening to. Because if we all have the same story, man, my dad left me too. Man, my dad didn't, or my dad wasn't there. If you have the same story, no, there is no foresight on how you get out.
Right. Yes.
Because we're just circulating the conversation.
Yeah, and you can't see it. It's just like for me, I saw an older couple one year, and it was the most beautiful love that I've ever seen. Like this woman couldn't walk; she had a stroke, and they lived in a nursing home. I was like a PCA, a personal care assistant, and they were gonna go down to dinner. They said, "Oh, it's almost time for dinner." So I saw her husband go into the bathroom and come out, and I didn't know what he was gonna do. But what I started to see is him comb her hair and put her lipstick on. And I was like, my tears just came out, and I said, thank you for allowing me to witness true love, because I'd never seen anything like that. So if you don't see another example or hear another example, there's what's possible. The only thing you keep hearing is negative. It's like, okay, there's nothing that's possible. I'm stuck.
Wow. And what a beautiful love to see love being expressed even when you're not at your best.
Yes.
And that's what it's about. And that's why I love God, because it's like we're never going to be at our best.
Mm-hmm.
Never. Not for him. And he's not judging us based off of, and then his love is not contingent upon us being our best. It's contingent upon us just being. Right.
Yep.
There's nothing that is required for you to do. In fact, you can't even do enough to even earn it. And I think when we understand that, it would allow us to have more grace for individuals who are not there yet and who may never get there, but doesn't mean that they're not deserving of love. They're not deserving of acceptance and embracing, like,
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
because we're already enough. We are
already enough.
We
Absolutely.
All right.
Man, this is good. Listen, I've had to give you some time, and thank you so much for working with me. But many blessings to you and your podcast. Your energy, your message, and just your mission is so powerful, and it's so dope. Please be encouraged, because the one thing that I'll end with this is that when I first started out in therapy, I only worked with autistic kids. And I did that intentionally because oftentimes for parents that are raising kids with disabilities or kids with challenges, is we don't realize they don't need to change for us. We need to change for them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And understanding that you get to see a version of yourself by removing yourself and saying, God, you sent them to me this way, so I need to adjust for them.
Yes. Yes. And just like I'm whole, they're whole. So the God in me sees the God in my son. The God in me sees the God in you. Right?
Absolutely.
Like it takes a level of awareness to view from the eyes of love.
Absolutely.
See you through the eyes of love. You are magnificent. I am so grateful that you took the time to, I want to cry. I am grateful that you're here.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Your story's beautiful. Thank you for
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. All right, Miss Love. Have a great one.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.